This school shut its doors 20 years ago. No classes since 2005. Until these cameras started moving again, nobody had set foot in the building for decades. What they recorded changed how people remember it. Watch closely. I'm the host. Today we trace how a set of forgotten CCTV tapes resurfaced, what they show and why one clip still has former staff talking. We'll check the footage frame by frame, talk to people who were there, and follow the paperwork trail that explains, or maybe complicates things. It's me. I was the caretaker. I'm now 78 years old, and I haven't spoken about this in 20 years. The headmaster asked me to keep an eye on things. There was talk of the school reopening, but it never happened. What do you see? Do you recognize anyone? Do you remember anything about the day? Tell us in the comments. What are the odds that a school closed 20 years ago would still have its CCTV system recording? Well, that's the case here at this school, which closed in 2005. And somehow the tapes just kept recording all this time. How is that possible? And how did they surface? That's what we're going to find out. Before we get into it, make sure you subscribe for more videos like this one. Also, big thank you to my supporters for making videos like this possible. So this is a school. It opened in the 1960s and was called School Name, but by the early 2000s, enrollment had dropped and maintenance costs had risen, so the district decided to close the campus. The local papers called it an economic casualty, but the building itself remained, oddly enough, a functioning school building with no students or teachers inside, just a caretaker. And the caretaker kept the CCTV system on, even though the school had been abandoned for over 20 years. It's unclear why the system was never turned off. There's no power button. It just kept recording over old footage every 24 hours, day after day, year after year, until just a few weeks ago when a local archivist was given these tapes by a former contractor who removed the hardware. The archivist gave us this box with 15 tapes inside. They're all labeled with the date and the name of the school, and we can verify the provenance with paperwork and a dated hard drive that was stored inside the box. The chain of custody ends with one person. They were the head custodian here from 2007 to 2016. I reached out to them, and they told me they de-left the tapes in the building when they retired. It makes sense that they would have kept the system running since they were in charge of the building. But how did the tapes get to the archivist? Well, apparently the contractor who removed the security system saw that there were still data recordings in the building and thought it was strange. So they put the tapes in a box, labeled it, put it in storage, and eventually gave it to the local archivist. What you're looking at is the main hallway of the school. This footage is from a single camera positioned at the end of the hallway facing the door. The time is 2:14 a.m. on a winter night in 2014. For the first 2 minutes, nothing really happens. Then the door at the end of the hallway opens by itself. The camera continues recording, and we see what looks like a shadow moving along the wall. Let's go frame by frame. Here's what we see. At 2 hours 14 minutes and 18 seconds, the door clicks. At 2 hours 14 minutes and 21 seconds, the shadow appears. And at 2 hours 14 minutes and 33 seconds, the shadow stops and the camera light flickers. There's a few possible explanations for what we see in this clip. The most straightforward is that the door was not properly secured and it swung open in the wind. The shadow could be explained by a number of things, including a person walking past the camera, a branch or leaf falling outside, or even a small animal like a cat or dog. The flickering could be explained by a change in lighting or a brief, perhaps a power surge causing the camera to malfunction. It might have even been the wind blowing over a light sensor outside, which could explain why the shadow stops moving when the lights flicker. But if we want to get a little more conspiratorial, there are other possibilities. Cameras can sometimes exhibit strange behavior when recording video. Sometimes a simple lighting change or a thermal shift can cause the camera to see things that aren't really there. Other times, lens flares or even a wiring fault can cause strange visual effects. We sent all the footage and photos of the hardware to a security technician who wished to remain anonymous. He examined the footage and told us this. An intermittent power spike can cause frame skipping and odd shadows. But he also said the movement pattern in clip A was not typical for electrical artifacts. So what do you think? Do you have any other ideas as to what we might have caught on camera here? Let us know in the comments. All the footage in this video is from a school in a small town in Ontario, Canada. The school was built in 1960 and closed in 2005. The building has since been demolished. This video was made with the permission of the school board. In the top right corner, you can see the timestamp. It's 3:58 a.m., and whatever this thing is, it's coming down the stairs. But it doesn't walk like a person. It just glides. This clip spread through the town like wildfire. People couldn't believe their eyes. Was it a ghost? Was it a prank? And how come the school was still recording after all these years? We don't know the answer to that last question, but as for the first two, let me show you something. This is the clip slowed down 8 times. Let's start with the feet. There's no clear footfall. The right foot kind of just disappears into the shadows. And if you look closely at the left foot, you can see the bottom of the shoe, but you can't see any of the foot itself. And if he was walking, you would definitely be able to see the rest of the leg. What about the coat? It looks like it's hanging off his body. Take a look at the shoulders, they're really narrow, which makes it look like the coat is way too big. But then you realize that there isn't actually a body underneath. But what about this? If you look closely at the stair rail, you can see a reflection, and that reflection doesn't match up with the figure. The reflection looks like it's moving on its own. Whatever this thing is, it's not walking normally. And whatever it is, it seems to be moving faster than the eye can see. We went back to the school to find out what people remembered about it. We spoke to 3 people who knew the school: a former janitor, an ex-principal, and a student who snuck into the building in 2006. Each remembers the building differently, and each remembers a different explanation. The janitor worked there for 27 years. He said that every once in a while they'd see lights at night, but he never investigated. To him, it didn't seem important. Kids or rats. He said, "I don't know." The principal had a different theory. He said that there was a caretaker who refused to leave. He said that the caretaker was supposed to move out when the school closed, but he never did. Maybe he was the one who kept the CCTV running. But what about the ghost? Well, we found someone who saw it firsthand. This is a student who snuck into the school in 2006. He said that there were rumors going around that the school was haunted. He and his friends dared each other to go in, but they never went inside because they were scared. He said that everyone assumed that it was a ghost. But now, almost 20 years later, we have new footage of it. If this is a ghost, then I think it's safe to say that it's a friendly one. It doesn't seem to be dangerous. It just likes to glide up and down the stairs in the middle of the night. Hi, I'm here with the channel. 3 years ago, we did an investigation into the case of a missing persons report from a school. It was a strange case because the school had been demolished 16 years prior to the investigation, and all the records should have been destroyed. But somehow there was a caretaker who stayed on contract for months after closure to secure the site. His name was Mr. Lewis, and when we went to interview him, he told us that he owed keys to the building, and that's why he was still there. But the more we dug into it, the more it became clear that there were other reasons why he might have stayed. The records we pulled show that Mr. Lewis worked all the weekend shifts between the hours of 8 p.m. and 8 a.m., and there were receipts for overnight maintenance work, which would have been unnecessary if the site were empty. Could Mr. Lewis explain this? Well, not only did he owe keys to the building, he also told us that he used to take the bins out at night. But how could he have done that without getting into the building? Well, as part of our investigation, we managed to get hold of some CCTV footage from inside the school, which shows a lone figure descending the stairwell at exactly the time that Mr. Lewis told us he was taking the bins out. Now, I know what you're thinking. Surely CCTV wouldn't still be working after all this time. Well, you're right. It was only thanks to a tip-off from a former staff member that we knew to look at this particular stairwell. And just by chance, the camera in the stairwell happened to still be recording, although we don't know why or how. So what we have here is a genuine mystery. This is a real CCTV clip from a school that has been closed for 20 years. So what we decided to do was to try and recreate the figure in the clip with the help of a former staff member. We filmed someone else descending the stairwell at the same time, on the same day, and in a very similar coat. And the result was this. Although the gait is a little off, the overall silhouette is similar. But the biggest match was when the person walked on the outer edge of the steps and shuffled rather than glided. Now, I don't want to overstate this. All we have is a very rough CCTV image and a reconstruction. But the fact that they match so closely gives us hope that our theory is correct. In other words, this is a case of bins out after hours. Perhaps an overzealous caretaker trying to keep the school grounds tidy. There were no signs of forced entry, and all the footage was corrupted. But there was one unexplained artifact that kept coming up, so we recreated it to see if we could find an answer. First, here's what we know. This is a school in England built in 1903. It closed in 2002 and was slated for demolition. But between then and now, it mysteriously burned down. No one was hurt, but the cause of the fire was never determined. In 2018, someone broke in and stole the copper piping, leaving extensive damage in their wake. Then in 2020, another trespasser set fire to the building, causing the roof to collapse. And that brings us to last year when these clips were taken. We don't know who was filming or why, but here's what we do know. Every single clip has this timecode glitch right before the figure appears. Then there's this faint second heat signature on some of the thermal enhanced frames. Finally, there's this tool bag scene in one of the classrooms. It wasn't on any of the building's inventory lists, and it shouldn't have been there. So what's most likely? Well, the building was only occupied by caretakers after 2002, and between the damage from the trespassers and the subsequent fires, it needed a lot of work. Someone either living in or working on the building saw the cameras as a threat and removed them. That would explain why they were stolen and why the footage is corrupted. It also explains most of the visual oddities. A failing camera could explain the glitching timecode, and the extra heat signature could be a second person we unsee on the other frames. As for the toolbox, we can't be sure, but it may have belonged to one of the caretakers. Now that's the most likely story, but it doesn't explain every detail. Why does the timecode glitch the way it does? What was the second heat signature? We couldn't verify those conclusively. Sometimes the best answer is a partial one. There's no ghost, just a puzzle of human behavior and a trail of imperfect machines. If you know more, a name, a memory, a clip we missed, drop it in the comments or reach out to the archivist at the end of this video. We'll keep digging. If you liked this breakdown, subscribe for the next deep dive. And remember, sometimes the old tapes tell true, complicated stories.